The $2,000 check rumors, what's real and what's not. Over the past few weeks, millions of Americans, especially seniors and low-income households, have been flooded with posts on Facebook, TikTok, and X claiming that a $2,000 check from President Trump is arriving before Christmas. Some posts say the checks are already approved. Others claim the money is guaranteed and just days away. And naturally, many people are asking the same urgent questions. Is this real? Is this official? And will I receive it? The truth is, the information online has been extremely confusing. Some creators are presenting speculation as fact, while others are mixing real statements with unverified rumors. That's exactly why it's important to slow down, step back, and look only at what has actually been said by President Trump and confirmed by the White House. In this report, we are not relying on headlines, opinions, or viral clips. Instead, we are breaking down official statements, White House briefings, and expert analysis to separate facts from assumptions. No hype, no clickbait, just clear, accurate information so you can make informed decisions for yourself and your family. This matters because for many seniors, families on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits, $2,000 is not pocket change. It can mean catching up on rent, paying heating bills, buying groceries, or simply getting through the holiday season with less stress. So before anyone counts on money that is not yet in their account, let's start at the beginning by looking at what President Trump actually said, what the White House confirmed, and where this proposal truly stands right now. What President Trump actually said about the $2,000 payments. To understand whether these $2,000 checks are real, we have to go straight to the source. President Trump's own words. This entire conversation began after President Trump made a public statement announcing a plan to issue what he described as a dividend to American citizens. In his remarks, President Trump said the government would issue a payment of about $2,000 to middle-income and lower-income Americans using revenue generated from tariffs. He specifically explained that the money would not come from borrowing or new taxes on Americans, but instead from tariffs placed on imported goods, revenue that the United States is already collecting. Shortly after that announcement, President Trump expanded on the idea in a post on Truth Social. In that post, he emphasized that the United States is currently taking in trillions of dollars, experiencing strong markets, and collecting significant tariff revenue. Based on that income, he proposed returning part of that money directly to the American people. One phrase from Trump's statement is especially important. He said the payment would be $2,000 per person and that high-income earners would be excluded. That wording matters because it suggests this would not be a flat household payment. Instead, each qualifying adult and potentially each dependent could be counted individually. This distinction is why many families began calculating larger totals. A household with 2 adults and 2 children could potentially receive $8,000, not just $2,000. For larger families, the numbers grow even higher. However, at this stage, it's critical to understand one key point. This was a proposal, not a signed law. President Trump made his intentions clear, but intentions alone do not send checks. That process requires legal approval, administrative planning, and congressional involvement, which we'll examine next. White House confirmation, what has been officially acknowledged. After President Trump publicly discussed the idea of $2,000 payments, the next critical question became whether the White House itself would confirm or deny the proposal. And shortly after the announcement, that confirmation did come, though with important limitations. During a press briefing, a reporter directly asked the White House press secretary whether Americans should expect a $2,000 payment and whether the administration was committed to making it happen. The response was clear but carefully worded. The White House confirmed that the president has made his intentions known and that his team is actively exploring legal and administrative options to carry out the proposal. However, the press secretary also emphasized something equally important. There is no official timeline yet. No payment dates were announced, no bill number was provided, and no final plan was presented. In other words, while the idea is real and under review, it has not moved into the execution phase. This distinction matters greatly for seniors and families who depend on stable monthly income. A confirmed proposal does not mean immediate payment. It means the administration is still working behind the scenes to determine whether the plan can legally move forward and how it would be implemented. The White House also made it clear that when new information becomes available, it will be shared publicly. Until then, any specific dates circulating online should be treated with caution. For many Americans, this confirmation was encouraging. It showed that the proposal is not just internet speculation, but at the same time, it reinforced the reality that no checks have been authorized yet. Next, we'll take a closer look at who would actually qualify for these payments if the plan is approved, and why seniors, retirees, and benefit recipients are central to this conversation. Who would qualify for the $2,000 checks if approved? One of the most important questions surrounding this proposal is simple but critical. Who would actually receive the $2,000 payment if it becomes law? Based on President Trump's statements and the information released so far, we can outline a clear picture of the intended eligibility. First, the proposal focuses on low-income and middle-income Americans. President Trump specifically stated that high-income individuals would be excluded. According to the details discussed, the income cutoff would be $100,000 per year. Anyone earning $100,000 or less would qualify for the full payment, while those above that threshold would not. This is especially important for seniors. Even if you are retired and no longer working, you could still qualify. Receiving Social Security retirement benefits, SSI, SSDI, or VA disability benefits would not disqualify you. In fact, these groups are among the primary populations this proposal is designed to help. Another key point is that employment is not required. This means stay-at-home parents, unemployed individuals, and low-income households with little or no earned income would still be eligible as long as they fall under the income limit. Just as important is how the payment would be calculated. The proposal uses per-person language, not per household. That means adults and dependents would both be counted. For example, a household with 2 adults and 2 children could potentially receive $8,000 total. Larger families could receive even more. For many families struggling with rising food costs, housing expenses, and utility bills, this level of assistance would be meaningful. However, all of this remains conditional on approval. Next, we'll examine where the government says this money would come from and whether the funding actually exists. Where the money would come from and if it's actually affordable. After learning who might qualify for the $2,000 payments, the next logical question is one many seniors ask right away. Where is this money coming from, and can the country really afford it? According to President Trump, the funding source would not be new taxes on Americans nor additional government borrowing. Instead, it would come from tariff revenue. Tariffs are taxes placed on imported goods, and in recent statements, President Trump emphasized that the United States is currently collecting massive amounts of money from these tariffs. In one example, he stated that the country received approximately $29 billion in just 1 week from reciprocal tariffs. That number is significant and helps explain why this proposal is being discussed seriously. Experts estimate that sending $2,000 payments to all qualifying Americans would cost around $160 billion total. At a rate of $29 billion per week, that means it would take roughly 5 to 6 weeks of tariff revenue to fully fund the payments. From a purely financial standpoint, the money appears to be available. This is why many analysts say the issue is not whether the United States can afford these payments, but rather whether Congress will approve using tariff revenue this way. Funding exists, but political agreement is still required. President Trump has also stated that any tariff money left over after issuing the $2,000 payments would be used to pay down the national debt. This framing is designed to show fiscal responsibility while still providing immediate relief to Americans. For seniors living on fixed incomes, this explanation matters. It suggests the proposal is not reckless spending, but a redistribution of existing revenue. Still, until lawmakers agree, the checks remain a possibility, not a guarantee. Next, we'll look closely at when these payments could realistically be sent and whether a Christmas timeline is truly possible. Payment timing. Could the $2,000 checks arrive before Christmas? For many Americans, especially seniors and families living paycheck to paycheck, the most urgent question is not if the $2,000 payments might happen, but when. With the holidays approaching, hopes quickly turn toward the idea of checks arriving before Christmas, but the reality is more complicated. President Trump has indicated that if the proposal moves forward, the checks would most likely be issued in the middle of next year, potentially around June or July. That timeline aligns with when the government would have enough tariff revenue accumulated and the administrative systems in place. However, some analysts and lawmakers have argued for a much faster rollout. Their reasoning is simple. Americans are struggling right now. Heating bills, grocery costs, rent, and medical expenses do not pause for political timelines. From that perspective, sending checks before Christmas would provide immediate relief when families need it most. Still, even in the best-case scenario, issuing checks before Christmas would be extremely challenging. The IRS would need time to verify eligibility, set up payment systems, and process millions of payments. When the last round of stimulus checks went out, it took roughly 2 weeks after the bill was signed for the first direct deposits to arrive. Given that we are already late in the year, a Christmas deadline would require unusually fast action from Congress and federal agencies. It is not impossible, but it is unlikely unless everything moves without delay. For seniors depending on predictable income, this uncertainty is important. While hope is understandable, planning around an unapproved payment can lead to financial stress. Next, we'll explore the political motivations behind the timing and why mid-2025 keeps coming up in these discussions. The political timing behind a mid-2025 payment window. When discussions turn to when the $2,000 payments might be sent, many analysts point out that timing in Washington is rarely accidental. The repeated mention of mid-2025 has raised important political questions that deserve careful explanation. If checks were issued around June or July of 2025, that would place them just months before the midterm election season begins to intensify. Historically, direct financial relief sent close to elections has often influenced public sentiment, especially among working families, seniors, and low-income voters. Political analysts suggest that issuing checks during this period could help build public support for Republicans by showing tangible economic action. From a political strategy standpoint, this timing could be beneficial. However, that same reality has also fueled criticism from those who argue that financial relief should be based on need, not election calendars. For seniors, this debate feels very personal. Many retirees are not thinking about political strategy. They are thinking about fixed incomes, rising medical costs, and whether their monthly checks will cover basic expenses. Waiting until mid-2025 may make sense politically, but it does little to help someone struggling today. This is why pressure has been growing from both sides of the aisle to move faster. Lawmakers are hearing from constituents who cannot wait another 6 or 7 months for relief. Christmas, winter heating bills, and ongoing inflation make delays especially painful. Understanding this political context helps explain why timelines keep shifting in public discussion. But politics alone will not determine the outcome. Next, we'll examine something unexpected: the growing bipartisan support for this idea, including backing from some Democrats. Bipartisan support. Why both parties are talking about $2,000 payments. One surprising development in this conversation is that support for the $2,000 payments is not limited to one political party. While the proposal originated from President Trump and Republican leadership, several prominent Democrats have also voiced support for direct payments to Americans. One of the most notable voices is Andrew Yang, a former Democratic presidential candidate. Yang built his national platform around the idea of universal basic income, proposing monthly payments to American adults. Because of that background, Yang has openly stated that Democrats should support Trump's plan to send direct payments, especially during a time when inflation continues to strain household budgets. In addition to Yang, Representative Ro Khanna of California, a Democrat, has proposed a similar plan. His version also calls for $2,000 payments to Americans earning under $100,000 per year. While the funding sources differ, the core message is the same. Millions of Americans are struggling, and direct cash relief can provide immediate help. This bipartisan interest matters because legislation typically moves faster when there is support on both sides of the aisle. It also reduces the risk that the proposal will stall purely due to partisan conflict. For seniors, bipartisan discussion is often reassuring. It suggests that the issue is being viewed as a national economic concern, not just a political talking point. Rising food prices, healthcare costs, and housing expenses affect Americans regardless of party affiliation. However, bipartisan interest does not guarantee approval. There are still disagreements about funding, inflation risks, and long-term economic impact. Next, we'll look at internal concerns within the administration, including warnings from the Treasury Department. Internal warnings, inflation concerns, and alternative proposals. While bipartisan interest in the $2,000 payments has grown, not everyone within the administration agrees on how, or even whether, the money should be distributed. One of the most significant concerns comes from the U.S. Treasury Department, where officials are closely watching the potential impact on inflation. During a television interview, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was asked whether sending out large cash payments could contribute to higher inflation, similar to what some economists believe happened during the pandemic stimulus programs. His response was cautious. He acknowledged that tariff-based checks are being discussed, but he also suggested that encouraging Americans to save the money rather than spend it might be a safer approach. Besant also referenced an alternative idea known as Trump accounts. Under this proposal, the government would deposit $1,000 into a savings account for babies born in the United States over the next several years. The goal would be to encourage long-term savings and investment rather than immediate spending. However, critics argue that this approach does little to help families who are struggling right now. Seniors facing rising prescription costs, heating bills, and rent increases need immediate cash relief, not future savings plans. A retirement-age household cannot use a baby savings account to pay for groceries or utilities today. This internal debate highlights a key divide in economic thinking. One side prioritizes inflation control and long-term planning. The other focuses on immediate relief for households under financial pressure. For seniors on fixed incomes, this debate is especially relevant. Immediate assistance can mean stability, while delays or alternative programs may feel disconnected from everyday needs. Next, we'll turn to practical guidance, what Americans should and should not do while waiting for an official decision. What seniors and families should do right now. While the discussion around $2,000 payments continues, it's important for seniors and families to focus on what they can control right now. The first and most important piece of advice is simple. Do not spend money you do not have yet. Until a payment is approved and deposited into your account, it should not be treated as guaranteed income. Next, make sure your information with the IRS is up to date. If payments are approved, the IRS will rely on existing records to determine eligibility and deliver funds. That means filing your most recent tax return if required, updating your mailing address if you've moved, and confirming that your direct deposit information is accurate. Direct deposit is especially important. In previous stimulus programs, individuals who had direct deposit set up received their money much faster than those waiting for paper checks. Seniors who rely on mailed checks often experience delays of several weeks or even months. It's also wise to take advantage of assistance programs that are available right now, rather than waiting on a possible future payment. Programs like SNAP benefits can help with groceries. Energy assistance programs can help with heating and utility bills during the winter months. Many states also offer temporary relief payments or tax credits for qualifying households. Finally, seniors should be extremely cautious about scams. The IRS will never call, text, or email asking for personal information or payment to release a stimulus check. Anyone claiming they can speed up your payment in exchange for a fee is attempting to scam you. Taking these steps now can help protect your finances and reduce stress while we wait for official decisions. Next, we'll review what is confirmed, what is still unknown, and what happens next. What we know for sure and what remains uncertain. At this point, it's important to clearly separate confirmed facts from unknowns. With so much information circulating online, clarity matters, especially for seniors and families who depend on accurate financial planning. Here is what we know for sure. President Trump has publicly proposed $2,000 payments for low- and middle-income Americans. The White House has confirmed that the administration is actively exploring legal and administrative pathways to make the payments possible. Tariff revenue exists and could potentially fund the program without new taxes or additional borrowing. We also know that the proposal is receiving interest from both Republicans and Democrats, which increases the likelihood of serious discussion in Congress. That alone sets this proposal apart from many past ideas that never moved forward. However, there are also several key uncertainties. There is no finalized bill, no vote scheduled, and no confirmed payment date. Eligibility rules, especially regarding dependents and income verification, have not been fully defined. Most importantly, Congress has not yet approved the use of tariff revenue for direct payments. This means that while the proposal is real, it remains in the planning stage, not the execution stage. Seniors should view it as a possibility, not a promise. Understanding this distinction helps prevent disappointment and financial risk. Hope is reasonable, but planning must be grounded in what is confirmed, not what is rumored. Next, we'll look at why public support and voter engagement matter and how individual voices can influence what happens next. Why public support and voter voices still matter. Even though no final decision has been made on the $2,000 payments, public opinion still plays an important role in what happens next. Lawmakers pay close attention to voter feedback, especially when the issue involves direct financial relief for millions of Americans. When seniors, retirees, and working families speak out, Through comments, letters, phone calls, and online engagement, it sends a clear message to Congress. It tells lawmakers that rising costs are not theoretical problems. They are everyday realities affecting groceries, rent, medical care, and utilities. Historically, many major relief programs only moved forward after sustained public pressure. Lawmakers respond when they see that voters are informed, engaged, and paying attention. This is especially true for seniors, who are among the most reliable voters in the country. Expressing support does not mean blindly trusting any proposal. It means communicating real-life needs. For example, a $2,000 payment could help a retiree cover unexpected medical expenses or catch up on overdue bills. These stories help lawmakers understand the human impact behind policy decisions. At the same time, it's important to stay grounded. Public support can influence timelines and priorities, but it cannot bypass the legal process. Bills must still be drafted, debated, and approved. Next, we'll turn to a realistic perspective, why patience and preparation are just as important as advocacy, especially for seniors living on fixed incomes. Patience, preparation, and protecting your financial stability. For seniors and families watching this proposal closely, one of the hardest parts is waiting without certainty. When money is tight, patience is not easy, but it is necessary. While the $2,000 payments are being discussed, protecting your current financial stability should remain the top priority. Preparation starts with understanding your monthly budget. Knowing exactly what your essential expenses are, housing, utilities, food, and healthcare, can help you make informed decisions without relying on future payments that are not yet approved. Even small adjustments can reduce stress during periods of uncertainty. It's also wise to maintain an emergency mindset. If unexpected expenses arise, look first to existing support programs rather than credit cards or high-interest loans. Seniors in particular should avoid taking on new debt based on the expectation of a stimulus check. Another key aspect of preparation is staying informed from reliable sources. Avoid social media posts that promise guaranteed dates or instant approval. Misinformation can lead to poor financial decisions or expose people to scams. For retirees on fixed incomes, stability matters more than speed. A delayed but well-structured program is ultimately more helpful than rushed payments that create confusion or inflationary pressure. By staying patient, prepared, and informed, seniors can protect themselves financially while remaining ready to act if and when official announcements are made. Next, we'll focus on scams and misinformation and how to avoid becoming a target during times of financial uncertainty. Scam warnings, protecting seniors from stimulus fraud. Whenever there is talk of stimulus money or government payments, scammers move fast, and seniors are often their primary targets. That's why this warning is just as important as any update about the $2,000 proposal itself. Scammers commonly pose as IRS agents, Social Security representatives, or government officials. They may call, text, email, or even send letters claiming they can help you release or speed up your stimulus payment. These messages often sound urgent and convincing, especially when people are under financial stress. Here is what every senior should know clearly. The IRS will never call you, text you, or email you asking for personal information. They will never ask for your Social Security number, bank details, or a payment to process a stimulus check. Any request like that is a scam, without exception. Another red flag is anyone promising guaranteed payment dates or asking you to click a link to verify your eligibility. Official government payments do not work that way. Eligibility is determined through existing records, not through unsolicited messages. If you receive a suspicious call, hang up immediately. Do not engage. Delete scam emails and block suspicious numbers. If possible, report the attempt to your state's Consumer Protection Office or the IRS fraud reporting system. Staying alert protects not only your money, but your peace of mind. Finally, in our last section, we'll bring everything together, what this proposal really means and what to watch for next. Final thoughts, hope, reality, and what comes next. As we wrap up this report, it's important to return to a balanced perspective, one built on facts, not fear or false hope. The proposal for $2,000 payments is real. President Trump has publicly stated his intention to deliver financial relief to low and middle-income Americans. The White House has confirmed that the idea is under active review, and tariff revenue may be sufficient to fund the program. At the same time, honesty matters. No law has been passed, no checks have been authorized, and no payment dates have been confirmed. That reality does not mean the proposal will fail, but it does mean patience is required. For seniors, retirees, and families living on fixed incomes, this proposal represents something meaningful. recognition that rising costs are hurting everyday Americans. Even discussing direct payments sends a message that financial pressure is being taken seriously at the highest levels of government. What happens next will depend on Congress. Draft legislation, committee review, public debate, and final votes all take time. This is where public awareness and engagement continue to matter. Lawmakers respond when voters stay informed and vocal. In the meantime, the best approach is cautious optimism. Stay prepared. Keep your information up to date. Use assistance programs that are available today. Protect yourself from scams and, most importantly, avoid making financial decisions based on money that has not yet arrived. When concrete updates emerge, such as a bill number, a vote date, or an official payment schedule, those details will matter far more than speculation. Until then, staying informed is your strongest tool. We will continue following this story closely, and when there is real news, you'll hear it clearly, accurately, and without exaggeration.